The sky got dark, and then it started to rain. I wasn't all that concerned because our tent is waterproof, and Mom packed ponchos for everybody. But by the time we got to our campsite, it was 6 inches underwater. We were pretty far from home, so Dad decided we should just find a place to stay for the night. I was really bummed because the whole point of the trip was for me to impress Dad with my camping skills, and now we were just going to stay in some stupid hotel room. Dad found a place and got a room with 2 beds and a pull-out couch. We watched TV for a while and then started getting ready for bed. First, Dad went downstairs to the front desk to complain that the heater was too loud, so I was alone in the room with Roderick. I went into the bathroom to brush my teeth, and when I came out, Roderick was looking out the peephole. Then he said something that made me freeze in my tracks. He said that Holly Hills and her family were out in the hallway, and they were staying in the room right across from us. I had to see this for myself, so I moved him out of the way and looked out the peephole. The hallway was completely empty, and before I realized it was a trick, Roderick gave me a big shove and I fell out the door. Then it got worse. Roderick locked the door behind me, and I was stuck in the hallway wearing nothing but my tighty-whities. I pounded on the door, but Roderick wouldn't let me back in the room. I was making a big racket, and I realized people in the nearby rooms were going to start opening their doors to find out what was going on. So I ran around the corner to save myself the embarrassment of anyone seeing me. I spent about 15 minutes sneaking through the hallways, hiding every time I heard voices. I was going to go back to our room and beg Roderick to let me in, but then I realized I didn't even know our room number, and all the doors looked exactly the same to me. I couldn't exactly go down to the front desk either. The only option I really had was to try and find Dad. Then I remembered. Dad is a junk food addict. I knew he'd eventually turn up at the vending machines, so that's where I camped out. I wedged myself in between the soda machine and the candy machine and waited. I had to wait a really long time. But Dad finally did show up. I popped out and said, "Hi." You know what, though? After seeing the look on Dad's face, I kind of wish I'd just sucked it up and gone to the front desk instead. Sunday. Well, after our camping trip, I'm pretty sure there's no chance I can convince Dad to change his mind about Spag Union. So at this point, I'm not even going to bother trying. I realize there are only about 3 more weeks before I get shipped out, so I figure this is my last chance to make a play for Holly Hills. If I'm lucky, maybe I can take some good memories, like of us smoochin' with me to military academy, and my summer won't be so bad. I've been working up the nerve to talk to Holly for a long time, and I decided it was now or never. When we went to church today, I tried to make sure we sat right near the Hills family, but we ended up 2 rows in front of them, which I guess was close enough. And during the part where everybody shakes hands with one another, I made my move. I reached over the pews and said, "Peace be with you, Holly Elizabeth Hills." The handshaking thing was actually just step 1 in a 2-part plan, and the second part would come tonight. My next step was to call Holly on the phone and use the handshaking thing to get the conversation started. I'd call her and say, "Hi, Holly, this is Greg Heffley. You might remember me from a very special Peace Be With You." I can see her blushing now. At dinner tonight, I told everyone that I needed to make a very important call, so everyone should stay off the phone. But I guess Roderick must have figured out I was going to call a girl because he took all the handsets and hid them. That meant the only way to make a call was to use the speakerphone in the kitchen, but there was no chance of that happening. I told Mom that Roderick took all the phones, and she made him return them to where they belonged. Eventually, Roderick went down to the basement. Later on, I snuck into Mom and Dad's room to make my call. I turned off the lights so Roderick wouldn't know I was in there, and I hid under a blanket. Then I waited for about 20 minutes to make sure he hadn't followed me. Before I had a chance to dial Holly's number, someone walked in the room and turned on the light. I thought for sure it was Roderick. But it wasn't. It was Dad. I decided to stay perfectly still and let Dad get whatever he needed and leave. But Dad didn't leave. He got into bed and started reading a book. I should have just uncovered myself the second Dad walked in the room, because now I couldn't just get up and walk out or I'd give him a heart attack. So I decided to just sneak out of the room, real slow. I moved about an inch a second. I figured it would take me about a half hour to make it all the way out of the room, but there would still be enough time to call Holly after that. I was only about 5 feet from the bedroom door when the phone in my hand rang and scared the living daylights out of me. I screamed. Dad screamed. I think he really did almost have a heart attack. And once he recovered, he didn't look happy to see me. Dad made me get out of his room, and then he slammed the door. I'm sure this episode didn't help my standing with Dad, but I guess at this point it's probably too late anyway. Tuesday. 2 days have already passed since I shook hands with Holly, and I didn't want any more time to go by before I spoke with her again. Luckily, Dad and Roderick weren't home tonight, so I knew I could make a phone call without being bothered. I practiced what I was going to say about 1,000,000 times, and then I finally worked up the nerve to make the call. I dialed Holly's number, and the phone started ringing. But right then, Mom picked up the phone downstairs. Mom has this really bad habit of just dialing without checking to see if anyone else is using the phone, and that's what she did tonight. I tried to stop her, but it was no use. It was like, beep, boop, beep, Mom! Beep, 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 boop, Mom! The phone kept ringing at the Hills' house, and then someone picked up. It was Holly's mother. Mom was really confused, since she didn't dial the Hills' number in the first place. I just held my breath and waited for it all to be over. I could hear Mom saying, "Hello? Hello? Who's this?" It took Mom and Mrs. Hills a minute to figure out who was on the other end of the line. But once they did, they just started chatting like nothing strange had happened at all. They got into this long conversation about the PTA and the fundraising committee and stuff like that. I couldn't really hang up, because then Mom would hear the click and know someone was on the other end. Eventually, the conversation between Mom and Mrs. Hills turned to me, and I wasn't coming off so good. I heard my mom actually say, "And he called his brother a ploopy? Mm-hmm." So at that point, I just put the phone down and went to bed. I figured that a phone call between me and Holly isn't meant to be, so I'm officially giving up. Friday. Today at school, I overheard Holly tell a couple of her friends that she was going to meet them at the roller skating rink tonight, and a light bulb went on over my head. After school, I asked Mom if she'd take me to the roll-around tonight, and she said yes, but I'd have to get a ride home from someone else's parents. So I invited Rowley along. As soon as Rowley showed up at my front door, I knew I made a mistake inviting him. Rowley had his hair all teased up, and he was dressed just like his favorite singer, Joshi. And I think Rowley might have been wearing sparkly lip gloss, but I can't say for sure. I couldn't stop to worry about the way Rowley looked, though, because I had my own problems. Earlier on, I had lost one of my contact lenses, so that meant I had to wear my backup glasses. The lenses on those things are about 3 inches thick, and they look ridiculous. If I'm not wearing my contact lenses or my glasses, I'm as blind as a bat. I guess I should just feel lucky that I wasn't alive during caveman times, because I wouldn't have been able to hunt or do anything useful. I'm sure my tribe mates would have ditched me the first chance they got when I asked, "Is this where you guys saw that albino woolly mammoth?" I probably would have had to become a wise man or something, just to make everyone think I was worth keeping around. On the ride to the roller skating rink tonight, I gave Rowley some instructions on how to behave if I got into a conversation with Holly Hills. Knowing him, he could seriously hurt my chances with her. I wish I had waited until we were out of the car, because Mom overheard our conversation. She chimed in, "Holly Hills? Holly Hills was the only 4-year-old at preschool who wasn't potty trained." I didn't want to hear that. I covered my ears and said, "La la la, I can't hear you." When we pulled up at the roll-around, I got out of the car before Mom could say anything else I didn't want to hear. Me and Rowley paid our admission and then went inside. We rented our skates and brought them over to the arcade area, where I scoped out the whole scene. I spotted Holly over by the snack bar. She was with a bunch of her friends, so I wasn't ready to go and talk to her just yet. At 9 o'clock, the DJ announced, "Couple skate." A lot of people were pairing up, and Holly was sitting at a table all alone. I knew this was the chance I was waiting for. I started making my way over to her, but getting around on skates was a lot harder than I thought it would be. I had to hug the wall just to stay on my feet. It was taking forever, and I realized the song was going to be over by the time I got to Holly, so I got down on my butt and scooted over to her to speed things up. Just scooch, scooch. I almost got run over a couple of times, but I finally made it to the snack bar. Holly was still there, sitting by herself. Time was running out, so I had to take a shortcut through a puddle of soda to get to her. On my way across the snack bar, I tried to work out what I was going to say to Holly. I realized I wasn't looking my coolest at that moment, so I knew I was going to have to say something pretty smooth to make up for it. But before I even had a chance to open my mouth, she said 4 words that changed everything. She said, "Isn't your name Fregley?" I started to tell her I was Greg Heffley, the guy from the Doggy Dropped It joke, but right then couple skate ended, and Holly's friend swooped in and pulled her out onto the rink. I made my way back to the arcade, and that's where I stayed for the rest of the night, because believe me, I was not in the mood for skating. You know, I probably should have realized a long time ago that Holly wasn't worth my time. Somebody who would mistake me for Fregley definitely has something wrong with them. I'm officially done with girls. I should just ask Dad to see if Spag Union has early admission, because there's really no point in me sticking around here anymore. June. Friday. Today was the last day of school, and everybody was in a good mood but me. Everyone else is looking forward to having fun this summer, but all I've got to look forward to is sit-ups and marching drills. At lunch, everyone handed their yearbooks around for people to sign, and when I got mine back, here's what was on the last page. "Don't be a fool. Be cool. Slick." At first, I couldn't figure out who Slick was.